prepared. Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
For millions of LGBTQ Americans, today is a historic day. President Biden is signing the Respect for Marriage Act into law.
Authorities arrested Sam Bankman-Fried in the Bahamas yesterday.
As the indictment today alleges, Bankman-Fried knowingly defrauded customers of FTX.
We're very close to getting an omnibus appropriation bill that would be, I think, broadly appealing.
The American people would get a better deal by waiting.
Hopefully in the next cycle, we'll have quality candidates everywhere and a better outcome.
Will there be a shutdown or not? That is the question in Washington tonight. Welcome to Red and Blue. I'm Weijia Jiang in Washington. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with Congress responding to the collapse of crypto exchange FTX. The House Financial Services Committee held a hearing today on the issue, but without their star witness. The firm's founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, was supposed to testify, but was arrested in the Bahamas yesterday. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York has charged him with a number of financial crimes, including conspiracy to commit fraud. For more on this, we bring in Scott MacFarlane and Stephen Portnoy. Scott is a CBS News congressional correspondent, and Stephen is a CBS News Radio White House correspondent. Hello to you both, and thanks for joining us today. Scott, I want to start with you because that hearing today was supposed to be a lot more fiery, I think, for lawmakers. But of course, Sam Bankman-Fried was not there. We did hear, however, from the current CEO who took over for him. I want to hear from him a clip, what he had to say about what happened with FTX.
This is really old-fashioned embezzlement. This is just taking money from customers and using it for your own purpose. Not sophisticated at all. Sophisticated perhaps in the way they were able to sort of hide it from people, frankly, right in front of their eyes. But this isn't sophisticated whatsoever. This is just plain old embezzlement.
Old school.
Old school.
Old school, Scott, but it is in a new space that I imagine lawmakers had a lot of questions about with regard to crypto and regulating it. So without Bankman-Fried there, what questions were they able to have answered?
It was a huge missing link to this hearing. That really was going to be the focal point, asking Bankman-Fried not only what happened, what triggered the collapse of this giant in the cryptocurrency world, but what should Congress do to prevent another colossal collapse that costs investors billions of dollars? So missing that piece, the CEO who is trying to salvage FTX from bankruptcy, John Ray, appears and really leans into that argument you just heard, that this wasn't some elaborate next level, next generation operation. This was, according to the new CEO, it's rather baseline fraud, a scheme, embezzlement at its most fundamental level, the likes of which we've seen different incarnations of through generations as the economy has evolved. So though both Democrats and Republicans left this hearing saying we may have to revisit new legislation or changes to regs and rules overseeing this industry, they didn't walk away with a clear sense as to what to change immediately, which means this goes on likely into the next Congress and perhaps well into the next Congress.
Right, and I'm sure that's not what consumers want to hear, who want to know now what guardrails may be in place. I want to turn to something else lawmakers are scrambling to figure out, that is, of course, whether to keep the government funded and how to do that. I want to play some sound we got earlier from a few lawmakers and chat with you on the other side.
We're long overdue. This fiscal year began October 1st. Let's get this job done this year and do it before Christmas.
I certainly don't support an omnibus. I mean, listen, we just elected, I say we, the voters, just elected a Republican House. Why not let them weigh in on this?
I'm not going to vote for an omnibus bill full of spending porn that they throw at us.
That's one way to put it, Scott. So I have to ask you what we always seem to be asking congressional correspondents this time of year is whether you will be working or not at the end of the month, because you're going to be talking about a shutdown or not.
Yeah, these standoffs are as much a holiday tradition now as eggnog and the elf on the shelf, which scares my youngest child. Here's the thing. The deadline is Friday for some type of deal to either fund the government or to delay the deadline into next week. They've already set into motion the process to delay the deadline into next week and hug it up real close to Christmas itself. We spoke with Senate Republican leaders today. We spent the afternoon chasing them in the hallways. The sense we got from them is they will not give anything more than a 2-month spending deal if they go past December 22nd with the negotiations. They're drawing their line in the sand, and they're saying if no deal is cut by the 22nd, they'll only approve a very, very short-term deal, or they will blame Democrats for shutting down the government. So this is brinksmanship by design. Both sides using the leverage of a deadline, if not December 16th, then the holiday itself, to try to exact concessions and get people to vote for something they wouldn't vote for otherwise. There's nobody walking around here with an expectation of a government shutdown, but there are many, many people walking around here with fatigue of this happening, this brinksmanship happening each and every Christmas.
And Stephen, just down the street, a lot of people are walking around the White House trying to get this done as well. They've made clear their priorities during this session are, keeping the government open. Can you talk to us about what President Biden, what his team is doing to try to avoid a shutdown?
Well, frankly, they're allowing this process to take place up on Capitol Hill. Aides here indicate that they are optimistic, that they're hopeful that Congress can at least avoid a shutdown at the end of the week and perhaps work out a broader deal that might avoid something more painful in the immediate term. But aides here don't want to get too specific, and that's been the pattern that we've seen for nearly 2 years here. Allow the negotiators to do their work up on Capitol Hill. The administration's made its priorities clear, and now it's really up to the appropriators and the negotiators to get it done.
Well, one thing they have no trouble talking about today and celebrating is the Respect for Marriage Act, which President Biden signed into law just a short time ago. Let's watch as he did that.
Love is love. Right is right. Justice is justice. These things are fundamental things that America thinks matter.
There were thousands of people there, Stephen, you included, but one person who wasn't there is Jim Obergefell. He, of course, is the namesake in the Supreme Court case that legalized gay marriage. I spoke to him earlier today, and he said he's out of the country. He also said that he did not feel like this was a day where people should be jumping up and down and celebrating. So tell us why, and tell us what this piece of legislation does and does not do.
So the Respect for Marriage Act does essentially three things. It repeals the Defense of Marriage Act, which Bill Clinton signed in 1996. That was the federal law that the Supreme Court struck down over the last decade that not only banned federal recognition of gay marriage, but said to the states that they didn't have to recognize a valid marriage performed out of state if their own state law had it as invalid. So the first thing that this does is it repeals the DOMA law, takes it off the books. The second thing it does is it essentially postulates or sets a framework for the striking down of the Obergefell decision of 2015. And it's meant to gird the rights of married same-sex couples if that were to happen. It also says to the states, it's sort of the inverse of the Defense of Marriage Act, that if the Obergefell decision were to be struck down and you are in a same-sex marriage and you have a valid marriage license from a state where it is legal and remains legal, you can then travel to a state where gay marriage would then be illegal. And that state would be required to give full faith and credit to recognize your valid same-sex marriage. It doesn't go as far as some supporters of same-sex marriage rights believe it should go. But there are two reasons. One is it had to be the product of bipartisan compromise, and this was. And the other reason is that in the law, marriage is a state construct, and backers say that Congress can't create a federal marriage right under federal law. What this law is meant to do is protect the rights of same-sex couples in the event, which court watchers say is unlikely, that the Obergefell decision is struck down. But there's one other point to make, and this is what I think Jim Obergefell was talking about when he spoke with you earlier today, Ouija, and that is that there are protections in this bill for religious organizations. It essentially affirms their right to deny services, accommodations, to support gay weddings. And for that reason, Obergefell says that this should not be called the Respect for Marriage Act, and it's why he says he's not celebrating today.
Stephen, I know you tried to press the White House press secretary about that early today, but she focused on what the bill did do instead of what it did not do. Thank you very much, along with Scott McFarlane. Appreciate your time. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger has been subpoenaed in connection with Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation of former President Donald Trump. Smith has requested all documented communications between Raffensperger and the Trump team members between June 1st and January 20th of 2021. The former president called Raffensperger days before the January 6th Capitol insurrection and asked him to, quote, find the votes necessary to overturn President Biden's victory in Georgia. As we mentioned, lawmakers on Capitol Hill didn't end up getting to grill Sam Bankman-Fried today, but they did get some answers from the new FTX CEO. I'll speak to a member of that committee about how Washington might regulate crypto going forward. That's next. You're streaming Red and Blue, reporting across the political divide.
An original CBS Reports documentary.
Yoga and wellness has become a place of anti-science.
Online clickbait.
The algorithms feed you content based upon your own fantasy.
Potentially at my peril.
There's no question about it.
Spreading digital disinformation.
Their entire yoga studio and spiritual community got so embedded in all of the QAnon stuff that it became a sick place.
Why pro-health people are fertile ground for anti-science messages.
We can just go into the whole mask thing. A lot of us just believe that's symbolism for silencing people.
People are locked in this mindset. They've been taught to accept what the medical doctors say.
No longer are you going to be willing to take any medical advice.
It's a big problem that we urgently need to address.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. An original CBS Reports documentary.
We need to put an end to this territorial status.
Will statehood create a better Puerto Rico?
So that we have the same quality of life that you see in the States.
What do you worry about?
Me living here in the future?
They're giving incentives to non-Puerto Ricans to come to Puerto Rico
and extract our natural resources and take over our land.
Vacation in Puerto Rico, and in exchange for that, you don't pay taxes.
Why would I allow somebody who abused me for 123 years to then consume me?
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. When weather turns extreme.
States from the plains to the northeast are bracing for more than 2 feet of heavy snow.
Every second counts.
This is a monster winter storm.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
There's a wrinkle in the forecast, the accumulating ice.
You'll have time to get prepared.
Take precautions before you head out.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell. People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We are so excited, we just can't hide it.
CBS mornings are, well, everything your morning should be.
Let's do it!
Let's go!
CBS mornings, starting at 7. Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Weijia Jiang. New York officials are providing details on the arrest and criminal indictment of FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried. He appeared at a heavily guarded magistrate court in the Bahamas earlier today. Bankman-Fried is facing multiple counts of wire fraud and conspiracy tied to the collapse of the now bankrupt cryptocurrency exchange FTX. The Securities and Exchange Commission has also filed civil charges against the former CEO. The SEC is alleging he orchestrated a scheme to defraud investors. Joining me now, Democratic Congressman Stephen Lynch of Massachusetts. He sits on the House Financial Services Committee as a senior member. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Weijia.
So, of course, Sam Bankman-Fried was supposed to testify today during a hearing on the collapse of FTX. Instead, a surprise arrest of Mr. Bankman-Fried. But even though he wasn't able to testify today, which he had said he would, is there anything you can tell us about what you learned today during the hearing?
Well, based on the testimony of the current CEO, we did learn that there was almost no accountability, no system of governance at FTX, nor at some of the affiliates. So I think the bankruptcy process has given us at least a partial view of what was going on internally at the company. Of course, I think that the testimony of Sam Bankman-Fried is essential to this. If he has any defense, I'm not sure that he really does. Some of his statements that he messed up and that this was all an accident don't give us reasonable confidence that the proper safeguards were in place.
I read that you wanted to ask him to get a sense of his deliberate conduct to avoid regulation that's in place right now. Can you talk about that? Because I know a lot of folks at home are wondering, how could this happen? How could one person, be the mastermind behind such a massive collapse?
Right. Well, he located offshore, and I believe it was for the deliberate purpose of avoiding U.S. regulations. And that's not only for his firm in the crypto space, that's for a lot of firms in this industry. So I'm cautious about what might be going on at other firms as well. And, he held himself out. If you read the complaint and the charges from the Southern District of New York, it lays out, as an attorney, it lays out basically as a straightforward fraud case where he took in $1.8 billion, assuring people that their money was safe, that was a stable entity, and yet he was immediately passing that money through, unbeknownst to them, to his hedge fund, Alameda. So, and also making some major purchases, luxury items, real estate, and what makes this even more difficult is that it's crypto, right? It's not, paper currency. So it's very, very difficult to locate. I'm very worrisome about being able to recover anything for these investors and customers in bankruptcy. It looks very, very difficult at this point. And in addition, after the failure of the company became public, another $1 billion was taken out. So that won't be available to creditors or customers or investors.
And you mentioned that, you were concerned, too, about other crypto companies as well. Can you talk about what further regulations and safeguards you think need to be put in place? Because obviously this is still a relatively new industry, a new way of thinking about money. So what more can be done to protect consumers?
Well, interestingly enough, we have met with Gary Gensler, the chair of the SEC, and the leaders at the CFTC. There are regulations in place, but a lot of these firms are avoiding them. They have refused to register in the United States. So they're forum shopping to locate in areas that are least subject to regulation. What's difficult, though, is that they're still marketing in a very real way. You see these advertisements, Super Bowl commercials with famous celebrities. So they're marketing to the United States customers, and we still are not sure how many of the victims of this are U.S. citizens. There was an original statement by the industry or by someone at FTX that said only 2% of the people were U.S. citizens who were defrauded. But the bankruptcy attorney today, the new CEO today, indicated that he could not verify that, and so we need to dig further into it.
So is this a case of one bad apple in Sam Bankman-Fried, or, as it sounds like you're saying, there could be, this really could be just shining a light on the black eye that is across the entire industry right now?
Right. At its very core, here's the problem. We have a financial services industry, yes, a traditional financial services industry that is rule-bound. Those regulations have evolved from the Depression, from the recent collapse of the banking crisis. All along the road, Congress with the agencies have created a framework to protect investors, banking customers, businesses. None of that is being ascribed to by the crypto industry. They're saying they want different regulations, but there are regulations in place right now, and there are transparency requirements that are not being observed. One of the things that was most stunning about today's hearing was that the new CEO said that there were no business records kept.
Yeah.
So it's been very difficult for them to understand what transactions took place and where some of this money is, because it's crypto, so it's ephemeral and it's very, very easily moved.
Yeah. At the same time, he said it was also just an old-fashioned case of embezzlement, not sophisticated at all. Congressman, before I let you go, I have to ask you about funding the government and how close you think we are to a deal to keeping it open at the end of the year in just a couple weeks.
Well, I think we're closer than we were last week. There may be some who are dragging their feet on this a little bit. I'm not quite sure. I know there are ongoing discussions between Senate and House members and leadership. There are a few members that are hanging on to certain items on their wish list, but I'm hoping that won't drag the entire bill down. Hopefully people will understand the seriousness of this and vote for the betterment of the country going forward.
Okay, Congressman Stephen Lynch, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ouija.
There are growing questions among Republicans about former President Trump's popularity in the party as he kicks off another bid for the White House. We'll discuss next. You're streaming Red and Blue.
Everybody wakes up in the morning and they are pelted with alerts that frighten them, news that agitates them. With this show, we have the time to explain what's going on. These migrants, they've been released. Explain the status that allows them to be released, to slow things down a little bit. What are the big sets of questions for China and its ambitions? Hackers are stepping up their attacks to extort victims. Let's start with easy. Who's attacking? Here's a deeper understanding of what's happening.
Prime Time with John Dickerson. Stream on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS reports tensions rising between a powerful country and a vital island.
The supply of this technology came grinding to a halt. The world would grind to a halt. Absolutely.
As Taiwan faces threats and aggression,
Taiwan is on the front line, and we understand our responsibility as a democracy. We cannot fall.
CBS News examines whether they can defend themselves.
Putin, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, they are manifestations of the battle between autocracy and democracy. And that is a fight that we're all engaged in.
Defending Taiwan, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When weather turns extreme,
States from the plains to the northeast are bracing for more than 2 feet of heavy snow.
every second counts.
This is a monster winter storm.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
There's a wrinkle in the forecast, the accumulating ice.
You'll have time to get prepared.
Take precautions before you head out.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
Stories that inform.
Or you can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
After decades in the public eye and public service, this mother-daughter duo is now talking about gutsy women. What's the gutsiest thing you've ever done? We go person to person with Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton and Chelsea Clinton.
Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
In today's Money Watch, business analyst Jill Schlesinger is here to help.
How do you even begin to make the best use of your money? If you've got a match from your employer, don't give away that money.
Dollar Jill, y'all.
CBS Mornings, starting at 7.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Weijia Jiang. New polling shows that GOP support for Donald Trump in the 2024 presidential election is waning. According to USA Today and Suffolk University, 31% of GOP voters said they would support Trump running again in 2024. 61% said they would rather support a different Republican nominee. CBS News political director Finn Gomez joins us now to put some context around this poll for us, Finn, because, I mean, here we are. It's December 2022.
Early.
It's early. So what do you make of these numbers?
Well, I spoke to a bunch of senior Republican strategists, and also have been speaking to advisors to potential 2024 rivals to President Trump, former President Trump. And what these poll numbers show, according to the people I speak to, is that his place in the party has weakened. Mm-hmm. He does not have that hold on the party that he once had, at least at this point. And but also conversely, you see Florida Governor Ron DeSantis rising. Mm-hmm. And also what they're seeing is a space for them to potentially run. I spoke to one advisor who said he told me today it is a wide open race, especially after the midterms, especially after the Georgia runoff, especially after Trump's meeting with white nationalist Nick Fuentes in Mar-a-Lago. There are unforced arrows, and those once narrow lanes are widening.
I want to play something that Senator Mitch McConnell said, because he clearly thinks that Trump's power has completely waned. Let's take a listen.
Our ability to control the primary outcome was quite limited in 22 because of the support of the former president proved to be very decisive in these primaries. So my view was, do the best you can with the cards you're dealt. Hopefully in the next cycle, we'll have quality candidates everywhere and a better outcome.
So he is going all in. This is not the first time that he has condemned President Trump. On the other hand, today, Congressman Kevin McCarthy said that Marjorie Taylor Greene, he agreed that she was just being facetious when she made those really outrageous comments that if she had organized January 6th, she would have won, that the mob would have been armed. Why do you think that Congressman McCarthy is so hesitant to condemn someone like that or the former president?
Yeah, I'm not sure who, she said she was joking. I'm not sure who would find that funny aside from maybe some members of the MAGA base. But simply, this is a fact of a political vulnerability right now for McCarthy as he as he tries to get that speakership. He needs her support. He needs her votes on that all-important floor vote when it comes down to it. He's getting threats from multiple sides within his party, and if he came out strongly, he could risk losing that support. So clearly, he still needs it. He still needs that support. He still needs Marjorie Taylor Greene, and he's handcuffed otherwise. So there you go.
So that Trump base, that support, it still matters, right? Is there a chance, in your opinion, that the former president could get more than 31% in the next year and a half or so? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he has about $55 million. The Trump-associated PAC has about $55 million. He still has about 30% of stronghold within the party that are truly Trump believers, and it's still very early. Yeah. And I know you'll be tracking it. Thank you so much, Finn. Absolutely. That does it for us today. You can stream Red and Blue Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And a reminder, if you want to watch previous episodes of the program, you can see them anytime on the CBS News website. Just head over to cbsnews.com/redandblue.